We've got a great panel tonight, so let's get straight into it. Former Resources Minister and Nationals MP for Hinkler, based on Bundaberg, Keith Pitt. He's here in Brisbane today, and Chief of Staff to One Nation, James Ashby, joining us from Yeppoon. Bit of weather up in Yeppoon. James, how are you going there, mate?
Well, it hasn't stopped since we spoke last week, Gary, so it's been good, and I think the farmers appreciate it because it's certainly been steady in these neck of the woods. A bit heavier up north, though.
I love that comment from Greg Williamson, the Mayor of Mackay, who said, "It's summer, it rains. Just stop getting hysterical." Yeah. Apparently Taxbow Radio is getting hysterical today. Anyway, Keith, great to see you. Also, pressure's ramping up on the Queensland Health Minister, Yvette Darth, to finally resign over, well, the Queensland maternity crisis. Mothers too fearful of giving birth at Gladstone Hospital, for instance. They're travelling great distances to better hospitals. This is just a mess. I mean, James, let's face it, it's between where you are and where Keith is. Darth should have resigned months ago, James.
She sure should have, but the problem is who takes her place. Labor here in Queensland have a very incapable, incompetent amount of members elected to the Queensland state government here. And unfortunately, they also have quotas of women in their ministry. So without Yvette Darth there, who are they going to replace her with? The short answer is they don't have anyone. The problem that we have, wherever you go regional, Keith's in the same situation as us. Hervey Bay now has maternity, Maryborough doesn't. Gladstone is a population, it's a footprint slightly larger, so it takes in Tannum Sands and outer areas of about 50,000 people. Yep. And here, families cannot go and give birth in a natural sense at the Gladstone Hospital. It's impossible, and instead they've got to travel north, and it's 100 kilometres. Now, there's a lot of roadworks, and it's quite a dangerous stretch of road. If in an emergency you've got to get your wife or partner to the Rockhampton Hospital, it's critical in its own right, and ambulance have got better things to do than transport pregnant women hundreds of kilometres to give birth.
Yeah, all because the hospitals don't work. I mean, let's face it, Keith, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she'll throw her under the bus. She'll throw her under the bus if she feels there's a political problem. She might just be using that bus pretty soon.
Well, I mean, on the list of which Queensland Labor minister should resign, it's a 10-way go and a dead heat, in my view. I mean, Mick de Brenny should have gone ages ago with what happened with the Queensland Building and Construction Commission. But now you see, you know, on average, more than 900 women with antenatal services around Gladstone with no services whatsoever. I mean, children don't arrive to Anastasia Palaszczuk's timetable. They just don't. And what really concerns me is this is a tactic that Labor is using to drive people out of the regions. Yeah. They're taking away maternity services throughout regional Queensland. They're winding down and degrading our hospital systems, and there's a lot of hardworking people. They're trying to do their best. They are being let down by Queensland Labor.
Well, let's talk jobs. Australia added more than 230,000 jobs to the economy between May and November last year. It's a boost for the country's economy. A fair chance for Labor to tout their economic prowess, Keith. I mean, Jim Chalmers, he's taking all the credit here. But the Labor Party are only elected at the end of May. Surely this could have something to do with the Coalition's economic policies.
Well, he should be sending the Coalition a thank you card. We left the economy in a very strong position through what was an incredibly difficult period for all Australians. I mean, COVID really did do a lot of damage. It was very difficult to manage. We've come out of it, in my view, in probably the best position of any country in the world. Now, Labor is all for the credit where they think they can make a benefit for themselves, but they're still throwing plenty of rocks at us for other previous decisions. But let's have a look at it. We've got the Australian resources sector forecast to do $450 billion this financial year. That's a new record. And what's Labor doing to them? Well, they're hitting with a carbon tax 3 times the size of Julia Gillard's, which will go to a penalty rate of $275 a tonne. They're trying to destroy the coal and the gas sector. And now we find not only is gas really expensive, you can't get any because of Labor's intervention. Now, that is bad for business, it's bad for the country, it's not in our national interest.
But, Keith, you got to face it. If it's a problem, it's the Coalition's fault.
Of course.
If it's good, it's Labor's genius every time. Now, James, I discussed this a little earlier with Graham Lloyd from The Australian, this doomed Sun Cable project touted by Chris Bowen as the holy grail to Australia's energy woes. I mean, Should we expect Bowen to actually keep flogging this dead horse? It's only a flesh wound, the fact that it's gone into receivership.
Well, I don't understand how this is going to be a solution for Australia, given the power is going to be created for Singapore.
Why?
And they've got no real solution here. The largest undersea cable that exists is between the UK and Norway. It runs about 720 kilometres. This has never been done before, I might just say. So I can see why so many of those senior executives within Andrew Forrest's corporations have abandoned him. I think they see the writing on the wall. I don't think that this thing will fly. The reality is when you transmit power across those distances, you lose significant amounts. Here in Australia, just between the power station and the household, we lose anywhere between 8 and 15% of power. So Can you imagine over a 4,000 kilometre distance? That is a significant amount of power they're going to lose in the first place. If I was to give one bit of advice to Andrew Forrest and Cannon Brooks or whoever out there is a billionaire in a position to throw money at these feel-good projects, can I say that governments, it doesn't matter whether they're state or federal, don't want to touch the Bradfield scheme. If you've got $35 billion to throw at this, how about we bring some of this weather we've got here from central Queensland to north all the way down through the eastern side of Queensland, New South Wales, take it into Victoria and South Australia. That Bradfield scheme is a money maker, and can I say it would take using recycled water, sewerage we're talking about, off the table for the Queensland Labor government, who at this moment deciding whether they run sewerage through your drinking taps or a new desalination plant. So Twiggy, there's an idea, $35 billion. Forget this link over to Singapore and let's build Bradfield. I'm happy for you to do that.
Yeah, look, the just add water country that Australia is. I mean, let's face it, Keith. James is right. I mean, the loss of power over that distance would be enormous. I mean, the pumped hydro plant up around Finch Hatton and all that area around Mackay, 1,300 kilometres to get the power down to where it is in the southeast corner. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work either. They're talking 4,000 kilometres of copper under the ocean. Think of all the glowing whales that are going to be in the sea.
Well, the front page of the Oz gave it away. Not commercially viable. That is exactly what they said from one of Twiggy's people today, and that's no surprise to me. 4,000 kilometres. In fact, you've got to go across a trench that's thousands of metres deep, and yet not commercially viable to Singapore, but we see the ISP from AEMO saying it is commercially viable to go thousands of kilometres from the far north of Queensland to Melbourne, from potentially the Northern Territory and elsewhere, cover the country with a couple of million hectares of solar panels and thousands of wind turbines. Because if it's not sunny in South Australia, well, we'll just get it from Cairns, right? You've got the same problems. Physics, engineering, you need to get a real solution, and nuclear is the answer here, Gary. It absolutely is.
Yeah, no, I think we've been on a joint ticket there. Now to New South Wales, where Macquarie Street's still running hot with the news of Dominic Perrottet's poor choice of costume for that 21st birthday party back in 2003. A week on, the story is still sticking around in the headlines, thanks to, you guessed it, Matt Keane. I mean, Keane's public support for Perrottet today is really just a way of keeping the story in the headlines.
Oh, well, look, really, if Mr Keane loses his seat and the coalition wins in New South Wales, I think it's happy days. But what we're seeing now is, there's some suggestion, particularly on Twitter and all of those types of places, you strike puberty and you've got to make a decision as to whether you go into politics and then keep your nose clean until you get through. It's just ridiculous. No one believes in this. No one's concerned about what happened for Mr Perrottet when he was a teenager. I mean, if I had the same challenges with iPhones when I was around, well, I'd probably get caught doing dumb things too. That's what kids do. Yeah. So I think the Australian people want some character in their politicians. They want them to have some background, particularly having some work background. And this idea that everyone's squeaky clean and shiny, it's not like he's done something criminal.
Yeah, no, vanilla gets sickening after a while.